I'm Margie Remmers-Davis with Crystal Clear Cash Flow, creator of the fast and easy way to QuickBooks Online Pro Advisor certification. This is one of the live streams that we do inside our Facebook group, which is the QBO Gym Locker Room. It will be linked below so you can join us live for our next live stream. You can interact with me and you get to vote on the exercises that I cover in our weekly live stream. So join us there, click the link below. We are going to go ahead and get started. Our very first exercise is troubleshooting beginning balances. This comes from our advanced level course. This is one of the things that you have to know how to do in the advanced certification. So let's we're going to walk through it. The first thing that it says we have to do is start in the sample company. So I have over here my sample company. Hopefully you guys all have that ready to go. Then here's our scenario. So Craig received his most recent credit card statement and started to reconcile his account. When he went to the reconcile screen, however, he received an error message that said, your account isn't ready to reconcile yet. Your beginning balance is off by negative $240.55. So the question to you is, how did this happen and what can Craig do about it? So let's take a look at how we can help. Okay, so first thing we have to do is we're going to have to recreate this error. Now, the error happened because somebody made changes to transactions that had already been reconciled. So in order to reproduce the error in the sample company, the first thing we're going to have to do is reconcile, because we have to do that before we can make changes. Okay, so we're going to go to the left navigation bar to banking. We're going to go to the MasterCard tile. And then we are going to just match one of the transactions just for the purposes of today. So let me switch over to my sample company, banking. We get all of that stuff. Would it be okay if I made this just a little bit smaller? Can you guys still see that? Yeah, I think you can. So that just gets it all on my screen at once. So we're going to do everything in the MasterCard account. So we're going to click that MasterCard tile. And then just for our purposes for this exercise, we're just going to worry about Tanya's nursery. So here she's matching this expense. We're going to go ahead and click match. And then we'll head back to our exercise. So steps 5 through 8. So now we're going to reconcile. Now there's a number of ways that you can get to the reconcile screen, and you might be used to using accountant tools. You can also do it from the register, and we're going to be looking at the register a lot. So this is the reconcile we're going to be using today. Actually, I forgot. Let me see, go back to step 4. So step 4 was to click go to register. So you can see that right there. And then in the bank thing, we're going to go to bank register right here. Okay. All right, love all these pop-ups with the sample company, okay? And this is the reconcile button that we're going to use. So we're going to click reconcile. And I'm going to head back to our exercise so we can follow along. Steps 5 through 8, okay? So we clicked the green reconcile button. Now we have to get through these screens that are just there because of the sample company. And what we're going to do is we're going to enter $157.72 as the ending balance. And then for the ending date, we're going to use the last day of last month. So I'm filming this in October, which means we're going to use September 30th as the date. If you're watching this recording sometime later, you just want to use the last date of last month, and then we'll click start reconciling. Okay, so match the books, where these are all of those screens in. Okay, so we're going to hit reconcile. Ending balance $157.72, ending date 9/30/22, and then we're going to click start reconciling. Again, this is just so we're setting up the error that we can see in the exercise. Okay, so now we're on to step 9, and what we're going to do is we're just going to select all of the transactions and then just reconcile them. Again, this is still just setup. So this is the button I'm talking about. Get rid of this. So we click, these darn pop-ups. All right, so I clicked this and then it wanted me to make sure that I'm sure. So I'm yes, I'm gonna just check them all. You notice that my balance now is 0. And so I'm gonna go ahead and finish. Now, hopefully you guys have experience reconciling. You've done the basic level reconciling exercise, so you kind of understand what's going on here. Our whole goal of reconciling is to make sure that this is 0. And so it is. So now I'm going to to say finish now. Because this is a credit card, I have an opportunity to pay the bill if I want, but I'm just going to hit done. Okay. All right. So now let's go back to our exercise. Okay. I'm going to hit step 10. That's what we just did. We clicked finish now and then done. And then step 11. All right. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the credit card register. So to do that, we just click right here where it says credit card register. So right here says credit card register. So we're going to click that. Close these. All right. Now let's take a look at the register. And if you don't know what a register is, the register is just for that account, all of the ins and outs and the balance. So what it shows now is all of these transactions in this column right here, they all have an R. That means that those transactions have been reconciled. Reconciled means that you looked at what was in the bank, you looked at what was in QuickBooks, and you said, oh, okay, yep, they're the same. I'm going to mark them the same. I'm not going to think about it anymore. Okay, so that's what the R means. And then you also have another symbol in this same column, which is this kind of double box green thing. Okay, so that little icon means that this particular transaction was matched to a bank feed transaction. And that's the one we did right in the beginning. That was the very first thing we did, was to match that transaction. That's going to be important later, which is why I'm showing it to you now. All right, let's go back to our example. Okay, so we just we're looking at the register, about the register. That's what I just talked about. These are the R's. That's the little green symbol. Okay, so let's now we're now going to change some of these transactions that have been reconciled. So remember, this is the whole point of this exercise, which is to reproduce that error that you would get the next time that you reconcile. So when you reconcile something and it gives you that little pop-up error that says you're not ready to reconcile, that means that a transaction that you already reconciled was changed somehow. Now, it's user error, really, is the way that happens. It happens because somebody went in and did one of 3 things. Either they changed that R to something else, and it can either be blank or a C. We'll talk about that in a minute, but it's not an R. Okay, it was an R, now it's no longer an R. That's the one thing. The other thing is that the amount of a reconciled transaction changed. So somebody went in, changed that amount. Usually these things happen, it's all user error that causes this. And then the third thing is that a reconciled transaction got deleted. Okay, so we're going to do each of those 3 things, and we're going to see how that affects the report, and we're going to talk about the steps we need to go through to fix it. Okay, all right, so we were just talking about, all right, so we're going to do each of these things to recreate Craig's problem. Okay, we're going to go look at that register, And we're only going to deal with Tanya's nursery transaction. Okay, so the last Tanya's nursery transaction, which is expense 3, and it's $158.08. We're going to click the R to remove it. Then we're going to click save and click yes when we receive the warning. Okay, so let's do just that much. So I'm back in the register. I'm going to scroll down to that last one for Tanya's nursery. It's expense number 3. It's $158.08. All I have to do is click on it, and I can click here to remove the R. Okay. Then when I click save, you'll notice I get a little warning. This warning says, whoa, this transaction has already been reconciled. If you change this, you're going to screw yourself up. And so we know, and so we're going to hit yes, because we're doing it on purpose, but somebody might do this, accidentally, or they think they're doing the right thing in a cleanup, for example, and then they cause themselves problems. Okay, so that was the first thing. So now the second change is an amount. So remember, there's 3 things: the reconcile status, an amount, and deleting a transaction. So the second thing would be if somebody changed an amount. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to now click on the second Tanya's nursery transaction, which is expense 22 in the amount of $54.92. We're going to change it to $54.90. And then, of course, we're going to get a warning again. So let's take a look at that. We're going to go to the register. Then this is the one. We're just going to click on it. We're going to go to $54.92, change it to 0, save it. Guess what? I got a warning again. It says, whoa, this transaction has been already reconciled. Are you sure you want to do it? And we're going to say yes. Okay. So then the third thing is if we delete a transaction. Okay. So now we're going to go to the first Tanya's nursery transaction, which is expense 50, and it's in the amount of $82.45. We're going to delete it. And this time we're going to get 2 different warnings, and you'll see why. Okay, so here's $82.45. We're going to click delete. The first one is, the first reason we have a pop-up is because this one was matched to a bank transaction. Remember that little green square? So this is say, hey, this one is matched to a bank transaction. Are you sure you want to delete it? We're going to say yes. Now the second one is the R. Say, hey, this is reconciled. Are you sure you want to delete it? So we're going to say yes. Okay. All right. So now we have set up our situation. So if I go to steps 21 to 22, we're going to reconcile again, and we're going to get the same error that Craig saw. Okay. So we're going to click green reconcile, and whoop, here we are. We have this little message that says your account isn't ready to reconcile yet. So you have to take care of whatever the problem was before that in order to reconcile for the next time. Luckily, this right here is a link that says we can help you fix it. So we're going to click that link. And this is going to bring us to what's called the reconciliation discrepancy report. This is the only way to access the reconciliation discrepancy report. This is not a report in your reports center somewhere. This is how you get to the reconciliation discrepancy report. So if, I don't know, maybe QuickBooks asks you on the test where to find the reconciliation discrepancy report, I'm not saying that's a question, but if it were a question, you would know you can only access it by clicking this link. Okay. All right. So here we are, and we can see the 3 different ways that the 3 different transactions that caused the problem. So here's our first one. Tanya's nursery, that first one was unreconciled in the register. Remember doing that? We did that just a minute ago. This one, the amount was changed. So it was $54.92, and now it's 54.90. Okay, remember doing that? We did that. And then this one was deleted, and it's not telling me what transaction was deleted. So we're going to have to figure that out. Now, luckily, 2 of the 3 of these are super easy to fix. Okay, so let's go back to our instructions. I don't want to get ahead of myself. So we went to, this was steps 21 to 22. We clicked, we can help you fix it. It pulled up that report, okay, tells you which transactions were changed, how they were changed, okay. So now we're going to change them back. The first one, super easy. All we have to do is change that back to an R. And we do that, we go to the register. We're going to click this one right here. We have to click it twice. The first time we click it, it's going to be a C. C stands for cleared. That means, okay, we glanced at it one time. We know that it went through the bank. Registered means that we sat down and we compared the 2, and we know that this is done, and we're done with it. Okay, so we're going to click it again. So you have to click it twice to get to the R. It just toggles all through those 3 things. There's C, there's R, there's nothing. Okay, so we're going back to R. We save it, and then boom, it's not in the report anymore, and our number up here is reduced. Okay. All right. So let's see how we fix the other one. So that was the R. The next one was the amount. So to do the amount, we're just going to click R, or we're going to go here again. We're just going to click the transaction, and all we have to do is change the amount back. We change it back to what it was. And so one question you might be asking yourself is, how do you know which amount is correct? The answer is the bank is always right. If there's a discrepancy between what you see in the bank, as far as like the amount, if you see a discrepancy between what the bank has and what QBO has, the bank is what is right, and the bank is what actually happened. Maybe that's not what you intended. Maybe you intended to send out an invoice for $100, but actually you sent it for $101. Doesn't matter. What happened in the bank, that's what actually happened. So your QuickBooks Online has to reflect that. Okay. All right. So that is, we changed the amount back. We're just going to save it. And boom, it disappeared. It's not a problem anymore. So here we just have this one that was deleted is the one that's causing the problem. And the only thing that we can do is to put it back in. Okay, so that's going to require some more steps and some more research. So let's go to step 28. Okay, and you'll see what we can do is we can click view to see the audit history of that transaction. So let's do that. We're going to click view here. It's going to open it up in a new tab, which is important because, can you see my new, oh yeah, which is important because you're going to have to refer to it when you create your new thing. So while we're here, we can take a look at it as what it's supposed to look like. So here is the audit transaction. It's going to show you every change that was made to that transaction, including when it was first created. Okay, so, oh, here it's back. Okay, so here is the history of this account, starting when it was very first created, which is this bottom one. And if I click this little arrow to open it up, it'll show me exactly what happened. So this was an expense. It was expense number 5. It was created on this date. Here's who it was for. This is all the information. The audit trail has it, but it's not in that reconciliation report. So if I go back here, like that information's not here. So, and then it tells me what it was, what the account was, and how much it was. So I'm going to use this to then rebuild that, expense. Now I do have on the exercise a little note here that says, in a real life scenario, you would want to check the other historical items to make sure you're entering the most recent information. Okay, so maybe this audit history, this was how they first created it, but oops, they later realized that that was not what it was. So then there would be another line that would have the actual correct amount. Okay, so for the purposes of this exercise, we're just going to use this very last one. Okay, but that's just something to be aware of when you're doing this in real life. All right, step 30. Okay, so now we're going to re-enter the audit history information. We're going to create a new expense. Okay, and we are, let's see, so keeping the audit history open, return to your original tab and click X to close the reconciliation discrepancy report. Okay, so we're going to click this X to close the reconciliation history report. Then we are going to click plus new and select expense. So right here, plus new, collect expense. And here we are going to re-enter that information. Now we can't change the expense number, but we do want to make sure everything else is correct. So remember that this is all from the MasterCard. So you want to make sure and change that to MasterCard. And this date, you want to make sure and use the date that is in the audit history. Okay, so right now, my audit history says it was August 11th. Okay, but if you are watching a recording of this, and you're going to and walking through this yourself, your date might be different. You want to make sure you use the date from the audit history, not the date that I am entering now. Okay, so 8/11. All right, audit history. Let's see what else. It was plants and soil for 8245. Plants and soil. Oh, there's two plants and soil. Make sure I get the right one. Job expenses, job materials. Job materials, plants and soil. There we go. That's the right one. And then I forgot what I think it was 8245, but let me just check it real quick. Yep, 8245. 82.45. Right, and save and close. Let me just make sure read my instructions. Okay, plus new, using the information, use the date from the audit history, click save and close. Okay, all right, so we're gonna hit save and close. All right, now we're still not done. There's still a couple more steps. So the next thing we have to do is we have to match it again to the bank feed. So when we deleted that transaction, it was connected to the bank feed. Remember, we saw that little green box. We actually were the ones that connected it in the very first step today. So when we deleted the transaction, the bank feed part got unhooked, and now it's just sitting out there waiting to be reconnected again. So that's what we need to do next. So we're going to we're done with the audit history, so I can close that tab. Okay, so now we're going to go back to banking. Right here, we're going to scroll down, and there is that transaction to match again. So now we're going to match it. So now that it's matched, there's still one more step that we have to do, because we've created this transaction again. We've matched it to the bank feed, but it's still not reconciled. It doesn't have that R. So if we go back to the register and we look at that transaction, there it is, that little green box. It's matched. It's cleared, which means we checked it off, but it's still not an R. And it's because it doesn't have an R that we're getting that error message when we try and reconcile. So there's two places that we could make it an R. We could go back to our reconciliation screen. Let me click here. Okay, and we could click this. And then now we go in. Okay, well, I guess I'm wrong. It's not recognizing it. So I guess we have to do it from the account. Never mind, we have to do it from the credit card account. All right, here we go. So we have to do it right here, which is a good thing because that's what I have in my instructions. So ta-da-da! Our last step is to reconcile it again, but there's an easy way to do this. We're going to go to the bank register, which is we are right here. And then we are going to just make it an R. Boop, and save. Of course, I'm getting a warning because, you know, we're making it an R and it's like, are you sure you want to make it an R? And we're sure. Okay. So now if I go to reconcile again, you'll notice that I have no error message. Okay. So 3 ways that you can get that error message. Number 1, a reconciled transaction lost its R. Number 2, a reconciled transaction got an amount changed. Or 3, a reconciled transaction got deleted. Changing anything else, changing the payee, for example, changing the categories, for example, all of that, you'll still get an error message. You'll get a little pop-up that it will say, hey, this is a reconciled transaction. Are you sure you want to change it? But it doesn't actually affect the transaction report itself. It's not going to prevent you from reconciling. Okay. All right. So that is it for, let me get my technology. Okay. So that is it for that exercise. What questions do you have before we go on to reconciling a transaction? Any questions? You can put them in the chat. I can't chat back, but I can read the chat and answer your question. All right. No questions? All right. Great explanations. Thank you. You're welcome, Pam. All right. So if I don't have any questions on that, we will hop over to reclassifying transactions. In the survey this week, people really wanted to talk about reclassifying transactions. And as I looked deeper into it, I realized that there was a basic reclassify exercise that we needed to do first, and then we'll build on that with a more advanced level reclassification. The advanced level has more to do with why you can't reconcile than with what you has more to do with why you can't reconcile than the actual process of reconciling. I'm not reconciling, reclassifying. I'm talking about reclassifying. Okay. All right. So let me get the link for you guys. You should have received it in your email. But I will also have Joel. We'll have Joel post it in the chat here in a minute once we pull it up. All right, so the basic one is in basic section 5. We are ready to roll. Anybody, any questions, comments that I missed? Nope. Okay. All right, so reclassifying transactions. So we have a 2-part scenario for our basic level exercise, and let's take a look at it. Okay, so Craig recently made several purchases from Tanya's nursery. At the same time, it made sense to categorize them as plants and soil. But later he realized that they didn't all fall into that category and should actually be put in the more general category of job materials. How can you easily make this transaction or make this correction? Okay, so let's take a look at our instructions here. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to reclassify transactions from the count tool. All right, and then what Intuit will automatically, or what the sample company will do is it will automatically, oops, I'm on the wrong one. It will automatically pull just last month's. And so what we need to do is expand the date range. So here we are in the Reclassify tool, and it just automatically pulled up the ones in last month. So an easy way to say I want the month before that is to just type in M. It's a cool tool that I just learned how to do. And then you click Find Transactions. Now, if you're not familiar with the Reclassify kind of window here, on the left-hand side, you can narrow it down by account, or on this side, you can narrow it down by the date, as we've seen. We can narrow it down by the transaction type, or it just says type here, but big hint, you might see the term transaction type on in other places like the test. And then we can narrow it down by a customer or vendor, and modify I'll talk about in the advanced portion of this exercise. Okay, so here we have just all of the transactions that are profit and loss type accounts from these dates. Okay, and in our exercise, we want to narrow this down to just Tanya's nursery. So let's go to Reclassifying Transactions. We're going to go to steps 4 or 5. We're going to just look for Tanya's nursery. So we're going to go here. When you do this drop down, the very first list is the customers, and Tanya is a vendor, so you're going to see her. So it's going to go all the way alphabetical through customer, and then it's going to start over the alphabet for all of the vendors. It took me a while to figure that out. So, all right. So now we're scrolling down. We're looking for Tanya's nursery right there. And we're going to click Find Transactions. So these are all of the transactions for Tanya's nursery. I'm going to click back to our exercise, and step 6. Now we're going to click the top of the box to select them all, and then we're going to reclassify them. So we're going to click the top and click Reclassify. And what we're changing this to is the job materials. And we want to make sure, and I put this in the exercise, we're in step 7. We want to make sure that we're selecting the job materials expense account, not the income account of the same name. So when I go to Reclassify and I see here, there's job materials, but that's an income account. We want it to be the job materials expense account. So we're going to go scroll down. I could type this if I wanted to, but right now I'm scrolling. All right, so job materials and expenses, okay, and they're going to click apply. So now what I've done is I have changed all of those accounts to job materials, and woohoo, I'm done. So I clicked apply, and yay, that I accomplished what I needed to accomplish. Well, let's take a look at our scenario part 2. Scenario part 2 is Craig paid for 3 of Tanya's nursery transactions with his Visa credit card, but he thought that he had used his Visa check card. So when he entered the expense, he put that it came out of the checking account. Okay. So the question is, can you use the Reclassify tool to move these transactions to the correct account? And what should you do? Okay, so let's take a look again at these 3 transactions. So if I click on this expense, you'll notice right here, it came out of the checking account. That's what we were just talking about. So can we use the reclassification to say all of these need to be not the checking account, but they all need to be the MasterCard? And the answer is no. We cannot change the payment account for expense transactions. So if I click those, I try to reclassify, you'll see that in the list, it's not there in the list. I'm only changing the account that is listed right here. This is what I'm changing with the reclassify. I cannot change the payment account. So what should you do? Well, the only thing to do is to actually edit every single expense. Okay, so that is step one. Okay, so this is what we just did. And we're just going to go into each one. We're going to change that and then resave it. So we would just change this to Visa credit card, save and close. Then we'll do this one. We'll do the same thing. Change that to Visa credit card. That one actually still, oh, that's the one we did earlier. Save and close. Okay, well, forget that error message because we just did it in the earlier exercise. Anyway, so that's what you would do. You have to, in order to change the payment account, you have to actually edit each transaction, okay? That's super important for you to know for the basic level test, okay? All right, and that is our basic level exercise, okay? So now let's switch over to an advanced topic. What you need to know for the basic level test when it comes to reclassifying is very, very similar to, it's almost identical to what you need to know on the advanced level test when it comes to reclassifying, with the exception of this one concept that we're going to go over in this next exercise. Okay, so this next exercise, and Joel sent the link. Okay. So this next exercise, very similar. Okay. Craig recently installed a landscaping design for Gita Kalapatapu. Sorry if I messed that up. Unfortunately, it was categorized as design income rather than installation. You can see why he'd make that mistake. It was he installed a design, so it was accidentally put in as design income. Okay. But it should actually be installation. Now, you tried to use the reclassification tool to make this correction, but you got this error. We can't apply those changes. Why is this happening? And what do you need to do? Okay, so let's recreate the error. So we're going to go to the accountant tools. Of course, we're already here, reclassify transactions. We're going to do the same thing we did before. We're going to select the date range. And then this time we're going to select on the left-hand side, the account design income. And that's going to pull up all of the ones in this date range that have that design income. We're going to select check. This is Gita's right here. We're going to check that, attempt to reclassify it to installation. And boom, we get an error message. So why can't we make that change? Let me make sure I'm caught up on, I don't want to get too far ahead of my exercise here. So steps 2, okay, we found the transaction. Step 4, we selected design income to pull up those. Step 5, we attempted to reclassify it. Step 6, we got the error. So here we are with the error. What is the situation? Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take a closer look at Gita's transaction. So to do that, we're just going to click right here, and we're going to look at this transaction. Now, remember in our scenario that we're trying to change design income to installation, okay? Well, there is no design income, that phrase, there is no design income category on this. There are items that are referring to design. So we have the design of the rock fountain. We have some custom design work. We have the fountain, that's listed under design, okay? But this is not the income category. These are the products and services. Remember that each product and service is connected to either an income or an expense account, okay? These are considered items, and items-based transactions cannot be changed using the reclassify tool. Why? Because the account is connected to the item, which drills down, like that's in the products and services list. It's not here. That means that there are no sales transactions that you can use. You cannot use Reclassify tool on sales transactions. And if it's an expense transaction, remember that an expense transaction has either the category grid or the items grid that you can use, or you can use both. Let me know in the chat if you would like me a refresher on that. I can show it to you. But the category portion you can change using the Reclassify tool. The items, if you have products and services on the transaction, you cannot use the reclassification tool for that because it's not on the transaction. It's in the products and services list. So if you wanted to change it to a different thing, you would have to do the same thing we did in the previous exercise. Okay, so I wrote all of that here. Notice the design income is not listed as a category. This is an item-based transaction. You can't make those changes. You're going to have to edit the invoice and choose a different service. Okay, so step 9 shows us how to do that. And we're going to go right here. We're going to change this. We would choose a different service. So we would change it to installation. Notice it says installation of landscape design. Okay, this is all wiped out. So we have to remember what this is, which is 3.5 at a rate of 75. And just to prove to you I'm not making those numbers up, here is the exercise. So 3.5 rate of 75. So the subtotal is still 58 or 582.50, which is what the original was. So there, and then we could hit save and close. One thing that I want to point out, and I pointed this out in the, where is it? Oh, because I'm on the wrong exercise. There we go. This is the exercise. Okay. So I pointed this out in a big note at the bottom of the exercise, is that making this change affects sales tax. So in a real life scenario, you may or may not want to do it the way that I just showed you. Okay. Depending on if you've already sent the invoice out, depending on if you've already paid sales tax on it, like there's other issues involved here. So don't just, rush in and make this kind of a change. So I just wanted to point that out. If I go back to my invoice, so here's my subtotal, my sales tax here. I'm going to go ahead and click save and close. It's linked to others. I think this one's linked to an estimate or something. Okay. And then notice here I am back on my reconcile screen, and I'm selecting design income still, but Gita is no longer in here. Okay. And I think that's it. What did I say? Finished, no longer in income. All right. So we are good to go. All right, folks, that is it for today. How do I get myself back up? Okay, there we go. That's it for today. What questions do you have for me about reconciling that I can answer, or anything, any place that you got lost in this exercise or these exercises that I can address for you? Now is the time. We'll give you a few minutes to put that in the chat. And while we're waiting, if any of you have, I'm waiting for any comments that might show up. In the meantime, just know that our next live stream is going to be a week from today, October 14th. I will put a poll in the Facebook group again to find out what is the best time for you. And of course, the survey is still going on for which exercises I will be covering in the live stream that day. So, all right, I don't see any other questions that have popped up. So that means that I must have done a great job explaining it. I'm so great to have you join us. Hopefully I can get it figured out so the replay is in the Facebook group. And Joel says, this went much smoother than our previous live streams. Yes, it did. Third time's a charm. Maybe I have actually figured out how to do this now. So yay. Anyway, all right. Thanks, guys. You guys have a fantastic weekend, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye. You're welcome, Anita. All right. Bye.